angrily, not sounding like a patient at all. Snow mushrooms? George repeated, turning the book to page 98 with suspicion. Let me see. Snow mushrooms. Ah, my heart hurts. A few seconds later, George suddenly clutched his chest and sat on the bed, looking utterly dejected. Albert and Lee Jordan were intrigued by their reactions and became interested in the snow mushrooms they mentioned. Lee opened the book curiously, glanced at the page, and then closed it slowly, murmuring something under his breath. He handed the book to Albert, indicating he should read it himself. Albert looked at the three of them, curious about what they had seen. When he opened the book, he understood immediately. The illustration looked remarkably like the matsutake mushrooms they had eaten a while ago. He had found it odd that matsutake could be found under heavy snow in February. Snow mushrooms, also known as cedar mushrooms. Albert quickly read the introduction about snow mushrooms, and his face couldn't help but twitch. No wonder they had such expressions. The mushrooms only grew in snowy winters and had extremely high medicinal value. Just 1 ounce of cedar mushroom powder was worth 50 galleons. No wonder they felt distressed. That's definitely the most expensive thing we've ever eaten, Fred complained, clutching his chest. Albert, you prodigal son, actually roasted snow mushrooms like that. If you sold it, you could get a lot of money, George echoed. Should we go dig for snow mushrooms? We could make a lot of money in the future, Lee Jordan suddenly suggested. That's a good idea, the twins said, their eyes gleaming with the prospect of gold. Are you crazy about money? Albert's mouth twitched. He understood why they had such an idea, but decided to pour cold water on their enthusiasm. Don't get your hopes up, we just found that spot after wandering around, and snow mushrooms are not easy to preserve. Unless you know how to process them into powder, digging them up is useless. They lose their medicinal effect if kept for too long. But, Fred began. Nothing to be desired, Albert interrupted. It's undeniable that the Forbidden Forest has a lot of good things. After all, it's still a virgin forest with untapped opportunities. But I need to remind you, even if we get the snow mushrooms now, there's no place to sell them. Albert stared into their eyes, seriously reminding them, who do you expect to trade with? Others know you're just children. Do you think they'll trade with you fairly? They're not your parents. Any guarantee is just a trick to deceive children. Aren't you tempted at all? George couldn't help but ask. Of course I am, but I know exactly what I should do. I don't think there are many snow mushrooms there, and you have to understand that snow mushrooms are non-tradable commodities. It's not easy to get rid of them. There are 2 types of goods that are prohibited from trading. One is extremely valuable or extremely dangerous, so the Ministry of Magic strictly prohibits trade. If you want to trade, you can only do so on the black market. Children trying to get benefits from the black market? Let's go to sleep, right? Albert concluded. End of this chapter. Chapter 123. The Harsh Reality. Although Albert had warned Fred and the others about the harsh realities, it did little to deter their dreams of striking it rich. Over the next few days, the trio frequently ventured into the Forbidden Forest, hoping to find snow mushrooms and make a fortune. However, reality proved to be unforgiving. Despite their hard work, they found nothing and managed to irritate Hagrid with their constant forays into the woods. The gamekeeper often complained to Albert about their behavior and eventually took steps to drive the twins out of the forest. As March arrived, the weather quickly warmed up. The snow in the forest began to melt, and with it, the snow mushrooms disappeared. After several busy days, the Weasley brothers sat listlessly in the library, empty-handed. Their recent escapades had not gone well. They were caught by Hagrid and taken to Professor McGonagall, resulting in detention. Filch, the caretaker, was delighted by the incident, and his rare grin terrified the trio. In recent days, Filch had been particularly hard on them. "Don't be so down. Life is still beautiful," Albert said, patting Fred on the shoulder in a comforting manner. "How about we go fishing by the lake on Saturday?" "Forget it. We don't want to get into trouble with Hagrid again," Fred grumbled, still upset that Hagrid had turned them over to Professor McGonagall. "All right," Albert replied, dropping the subject. "What are you working on?" Angelina asked curiously, putting down her quill. "I thought you finished your Transfiguration homework ages ago." "I'm writing a paper for Transfiguration today. Professor McGonagall asked me to do it at the last Transfiguration Club meeting," Albert explained casually, not realizing the impact of his words. "You're writing for a magazine?" Angelina and the others were taken aback. "Not yet. I'll hand the manuscript to Professor McGonagall first. She'll select the suitable ones, help revise them, and then send them to Transfiguration today," Albert clarified. His paper was titled, "How to Apply Transfiguration in Combat." It combined what he had previously seen with transformation theory, a field in which Angelina asked curiously, putting down her quill. "I thought you finished your Transfiguration homework ages ago." "I'm writing a paper for Transfiguration today. Professor McGonagall asked me to do it at the last Transfiguration Club meeting," Albert explained casually, not realizing the impact of his words. "You're writing for a magazine?" Angelina and the others were taken aback. "Not yet. I'll hand the manuscript to Professor McGonagall first. She'll select the suitable ones, help revise them, and then send them to Transfiguration today," Albert clarified. His paper was titled, "How to Apply Transfiguration in Combat." It combined what he had previously seen with transformation theory, a field in which both Principal Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall excelled. Albert didn't expect his paper to be published, but writing it had its benefits. Professor McGonagall would carefully revise it and provide her opinions and evaluations, helping Transfiguration Club students improve. Each time he wrote, revised, and read these papers, Albert's understanding of Transfiguration deepened, which was one reason he paid attention to this task.